Hey boys and girls, today we're going to be reading a story called Salt in His Shoes. This is a story about Michael Jordan and his pursuit of a dream. If you don't know who Michael Jordan is, he is a very famous basketball player. He's retired now, but he's still in the basketball industry, and man, was he a great player. I think you might be surprised at his journey. It wasn't always easy. He had to work really extra hard. This story was written by Dolores Jordan, that's his mom, and Rosalind M. Jordan, who's his sister. It was illustrated by Kadir Nelson. So as I read this story, I want you to listen for those vocabulary words, and when you hear one of those words, you can either do the motion that we talked about or give me a thumbs up when you hear those words, okay? Another thing we're going to be listening for in this story is the lesson. That's our activity this week, is the lesson of the story. So the lesson is what the author wants the reader, you, to learn from the story. You may also hear it called the moral of the story. So I want you to be listening. What do you think that the moral or the lesson in this story is? Okay, so we're going to read this story called Salt in His Shoes. Remember, listen for those vocabulary words, please. Look how tall he is. Michael loved to play basketball. Every Saturday, he followed his older brothers, Larry and Ronnie, to the park, hoping they would let him play. And if one of the guys who usually played with them didn't show, they always did. But there was one problem. His name was Mark. He was the tallest boy on the court. "What's the matter, Mikey? Too short?" Mark flapped his arms in Michael's face. "Over here," shouted Larry. But when Michael threw the ball, Mark's long arms came out of nowhere and knocked the ball away. It flew into the hands of a player on Mark's team. He made the basket, and the game was over, just like that. I am really sorry, guys. If I were taller, that wouldn't have happened. All the way home, Michael apologized, even though no one was mad at him. His oldest brother, Ronnie, tried to cheer him up. "Look, little brother, you played good today. Don't worry, we'll win the next time." His brothers were very encouraging. There's nothing we can do about how tall we are, can we? That's just the way we're made. When they got home, Michael went into the kitchen where Mama was cooking dinner. He was still disappointed, and she could tell. "You guys lost again today, huh?" Michael nodded. He sat quietly for a minute, then said, "Mama, how can I grow taller?" Now, Mama knew the answer to a lot of questions, just like your mama probably does. But that was a tough one. She thought for a moment as she sprinkled salt and pepper on the chicken she was making for dinner. Then she smiled, looked at Michael, and said, "Salt." "Salt?" Michael looked at his mama. "Salt in your shoes. We'll put salt in your shoes and say our prayer every night. Before you know it, you'll be taller," she replied. Do you think that salt works? "Salt in my shoes?" Michael said quietly to himself. Surely Mama was teasing. He sat staring out the window, trying to figure out how salt was going to help him grow. He noticed the rose bushes outside in Mama's garden. They had grown high along the fence, and roses of all colors were blooming on the vines. He thought to himself, "I remember when my Mama first planted those bushes." Michael's face lit up. If Mama knows how to make those rose bushes grow taller, then maybe she's right. Maybe salt in my shoes really will help me grow. How many of you have grown since you were a baby? We all grow, right? Just some of us taller and bigger than others. Growing more excited, Michael twirled around and started asking lots of questions. "Mama, how long will it take? And how tall do you think I will get?" Smiling, Mama sat down next to him and explained, "In order for this to work, the most important things you have to do are be patient and listen to what I tell you and say your prayers every night." Listening carefully, Michael shook his head. "Okay, Mama, I'll be patient, but what does saying my prayers have to do with it? Everything, Mama replied, and she hugged him. Now, go wash up and tell your brothers and sisters to get ready for dinner. Michael dashed out of the kitchen, almost knocking over his father, who was walking in. "What's he up to now?" asked Daddy. "Oh, the usual," laughed Mama. "Chasing a dream." It's good to have dreams. Think about what some of your dreams are. Later during dinner, Mama noticed that Michael was barely eating anything. He was already daydreaming about being taller. "Michael, first things first, you won't grow if you don't eat, especially your vegetables." Raise your hand if your mom's told you that before. Eat those vegetables. "But I'm not really hungry," he said. Raising her eyebrows, Mama gave him a stern look. That mama and teacher look. Slowly, Michael picked up his fork and began to eat. Minutes later, his plate was clear, and he was asking for more. That evening at bedtime, Michael set his favorite game shoes on the floor next to the growth chart hanging on the wall. Then he put on his pajamas, said his prayers, and jumped into bed. I don't know about you, but it seems like he's pretty excited to get into bed because he has hopes of what's going to happen next. Here comes Mama. When Mama came in, Michael was fast asleep. By the look on his face, she could tell he was already playing basketball in his dreams. Standing by his bed, Mama sprinkled salt in his shoes. Then she prayed quietly over him as she did all her children. There she is, sprinkling it in there. Dear God, please help Michael to be the best he can be and give his best in all that he does. And Lord, could you please make him just a little bit taller tomorrow than he was today? Thank you. Amen. After that night, Michael wore his favorite game shoes everywhere he went, even to church. He stopped going to the park with his brothers on Saturdays. Instead, he stayed home and practiced. He wanted to grow a few more inches before he went back to the park. What do we know about practicing things? Think about it. When we practice, we get better. After 2 months of practicing and waiting patiently and praying, Michael stood next to the growth chart on his wall. Nothing. He hadn't grown an inch. He was disappointed, but he did not stop believing. I've got to give it time, like Mama said, Michael thought to himself, and that's what he did. 2 more months of practicing went by and still nothing. Now Michael was becoming a little sad. How many of you have done that before? You've worked really hard or you're hoping for something a lot and then it hasn't happened yet. Just wait. Not only had he not grown 1 inch, but he also missed playing basketball with Larry and Ronnie. About the only thing he didn't miss was being picked on by Mark. When the next Saturday came, his brothers tried to get Michael to go with them to the park, but he wouldn't budge. Mama had begun to worry. When she saw Michael sitting alone on the steps, she said to Daddy, "Maybe you should go out and talk to him." So he was so excited, and now he's changed a little bit. Looks like he's a little disappointed. So Daddy went out and sat with Michael. "What's wrong, son? You haven't gone to the park with your brothers for a while now. Are you okay?" Michael didn't say anything at first. Then he looked at Daddy and said, "I thought I would at least be a few inches taller by now. I did everything Mama told me to do, but nothing has happened." "Michael, why do you want to be taller?" Daddy asked. "If I were taller, I'd be a great player, and I could help our team win," Michael answered. "But you are a great player, son, and you already have everything it takes to be a winner right in here." Daddy tapped Michael on his chest, so he has everything it takes from his heart, his character too. "Being taller may help you play a little bit better, but not as much as practice, determination, and giving your best will. Those are the things that make you a real winner." Michael thought about what Daddy had said for a minute. Then suddenly, He jumped up and took off. "Where are you going?" Daddy yelled after him. "I've got a game today. I'm late," Michael yelled. So it seems like that little talk with Dad gave him some oomph to get out there again. When Michael reached the park, the game had started. He sat on the bench, hoping he'd get a chance to play. And he did. The game was almost over and the score was tied when John, one of the guys who was on Michael's team, fell and hurt himself. Here was Michael's chance. Oh, I bet he was feeling so excited. Michael joined his team in the huddle as they gathered on the sideline for a timeout. "Okay, the game is tied and we need 1 point. Who wants to take the shot?" Ronnie asked. He looked at Michael's direction. Feeling more confident than ever, Michael said, "I'll do it." When the whistle blew and the game began again, Mark began to pick on Michael as usual. "Still trying to play with the big boys, huh?" Mark taunted. But Michael paid him no attention. Taller or not, he'd been practicing. And today, he was determined to win. Larry threw the ball inbounds to Michael. Michael caught it, bounced it in for a moment, and then took off running. Ooh, how many of you think they're going to win this time? We'll see. As he approached Mark, Michael shifted to the right. Mark followed, but then he was still shifting. Michael spun to his left. He stepped behind Mark and shot. The ball arced far above his opponent's hand and fell silently through the hoop. 2 points. The game was over. Michael's team won. It was just as Michael had dreamed. When he realized what he had done, Michael took off running and he didn't stop until he reached home. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine how he's feeling right now. Bursting through the door, he shouted, "I did it, Daddy, I did it! I shot right over the tall guy's head and we won the game." Running in behind him, Ronnie and Larry, his brothers, joined the celebration. "That's right, little brother, you did it! You won the game for us!" Michael remembered the look that Ronnie gave him during the last time out on the game, and he said, "No, we won the game, but I was the star." They all laughed. After that day, Mama stopped putting salt in Michael's shoes, but Michael did not stop being patient, working hard, and praying. So, that must be what made Michael Jordan grow up to be a 6 foot, 6 inch tall basketball superstar. And yes, he was a superstar. So what I love about this is the lesson in the story. So the lesson of this story, the moral of this story is, it doesn't really always matter how tall or short you are. What matters is the hard work you put in, being patient, because it doesn't always come easy at first. This could be anything. For Michael Jordan, it was basketball. But this could be reading for you. It might not come easy, and it needs practice. But the more practice you put in, the better you get. It might be, riding your bike. That's something that's kind of hard to do at first. But if you keep practicing and putting the work in and the effort in, you're gonna get better. You can't give up. There's some things that we cannot change. We cannot change how tall we're going to be. It's just how we're made. There's some things you can't change, but the lesson of this story is hard work pays off. Okay? Hard work is better than the other things we can't change. In our family, we like to say, control the controllables. So what you can control is yourself and what you do and what you put in. You can't control what others do. You can't control the things that you just have no control over. I can't make myself taller. Can't make myself shorter. Okay? I can't do any of those things, but I can work really hard at what I'm doing. So I want you to think about these things. What have you done to make yourself better at something? Have you practiced really hard on your math facts? Have you read some books? Your next activity is going to be a Nearpod lesson. I want you to really focus hard on that, and I hope you enjoyed this book. See you guys soon.